Hey everyone, welcome back to OC Outdoorsman. Well, as you can see, I'm on my Yak approaching the Queen Mary that you're seeing there. But this video will be done a little differently. I will be sharing with you the actual audio and video from my trip today versus adding the audio during post-editing like I normally do. So there won't be much fish catching in this particular video, although I did manage to land one here. Caught a little croaker that I ended up releasing. But really the main purpose of this video is to share with you my observations of the performance of this Old Town big water kayak as compared to my old Hobie Outback. Alright, it's really slow. So while I'm waiting to catch fish here, just a few more thoughts about this kayak, or observations. The seat, oh man, the seat is super comfortable. There's lots of padding here. It's really great support for your back. I think last weekend I was on the water for about 6 hours. No problems with my back getting stiff or sore. Super comfortable. Again, my only complaint is that it's not adjustable up and down. It can only go forward and backwards, but as far as comfort, it's really wide, lots of padding and support. Oh, and they actually, there used to be, you can't really see it, in the old seat, there used to be like a little, I don't want to say a hole, but like a gap, when you can see the bar of the bottom of the seat through it. That's gone now. It's completely padded and covered, so it's very comfortable. Another observation, and this is from last week as well as today. Last week it was really rough. I was out on the open water and I was battling those swells, and water never came over the hull and into the Yak. And the new big water, remember this is it changed from the Predator. They don't come with scupper plugs, and at first I was kind of annoyed at that. But then I realized whenever you catch fish and you're removing the hooks or gutting them, the inside of your Yak can get really messy with blood, guts, all that stuff. And that's what the scupper holes are for, you know, to get rid of that stuff, for the water to drain out. And if you have scupper plugs, now the cool thing about the Old Town scupper plugs is that they're one way. Water can go out, but it can't come back in. But if you're catching fish and you're gutting them and cutting bait, what have you, that stuff will not drain out with the scupper plugs in. And the way this boat is designed, again, because it's so high up and the gunnels are, what I say, about 8 inches high, the water does not come in. And if any does splash, if you get incidental splash thing that comes into the boat, it'll drain right out. And if you're cutting fish or doing anything with bait, you want that stuff to flush out. So really, it's better without the scupper plugs. My old Hobie, I never had scupper plugs. But then again, water on that thing would come in, especially on windy days. If you saw my footage from Lake Trolley, I was getting soaked, and that was a lake. Water was splashing over the hull. There was a lot of hull slap, and it was getting into my boat. I was getting wet, but you know, I got used to that, and I never really needed scupper plugs. So that's another thing. This is a very dry ride, even in rough conditions. Water was not coming in. I'm just waiting for another trip out to Trolley. If I bring this out there and the winds pick up, I want to see how much water actually gets into the boat. But again, because it's so high up, I really doubt that's going to be an issue. But it's a very dry ride, and it's kind of nice having the scupper plugs free, really. I've never really ever used scupper plugs, and I don't see a need for them now. But here is the tip of the day. I just adjusted my neck gaiter earlier and realized I was handling this old shrimp and squid. If you're going to adjust your neck gaiter, be sure to wash your hands before you grab it, because it smells like feet right now. That smell will not go away. Yeah, wash up before you grab a hold of your neck gaiter or your face mask. It's pretty nasty. I'm gonna have to turn this thing around. GoPro, stop. Okay, I'm kind of annoyed right now. I just found out that the footage I recorded on my fishing trip out of Long Beach there, part of it got corrupted, so I'm going to have to do a quick summary of what I did while I was out on the water. And let's start with this. I lost a lot of amazing footage, but you have to deal with it. Alright, so let's start with the paddling. So what I did was, when I was out there, I figured, well, why not do a paddle test? So I used this Pelican angler's paddle that you're seeing here, and I brought up my PDL drive, and I wanted to test the tracking ability and speed of trying to paddle such a huge kayak on the ocean. So that's what I did. I took this thing out, and it performed amazingly well. You know that on the first trip last week, I did a really quick paddle to the landing point. It was maybe a few hundred yards. Well, today, or actually, yeah, I went a lot further out of Long Beach using the paddle, and man, it performed great. What I did is I locked down the rudder because I just wanted to go straight, and then I started paddling, and I averaged 2 to 2.5 miles an hour. May not sound very fast, but that's the speed I normally did on my Pro Angler using the Mirage drive. And yeah, this thing, because it is longer, remember this paddle was built for the much wider fishing kayaks. It's 98 inches long. Now, Hobie, the one thing about Hobie, they do give you a free paddle when you purchase a kayak, whether it's a Pro Angler, an Outback, what have you, but they're shorter, and I didn't realize the difference it made. When you're using a shorter paddle, these blades, they don't go into the water all the way, or the shaft will bang up against your kayak as you're paddling because they're just too short. It's important to get the right size paddle for the size of your kayak, and in my case, it's a 36 inch wide kayak with, it's 13 foot 2 inches long. So you're going to need bigger paddles to get that thing going, and this thing does the job. This Pelican angler paddle does the job really well. So in addition to speed, okay, this thing, because the big water PDL is shaped like a bullet, I keep mentioning, it tracks super straight. It tracks well. It went in a straight line, and I went maybe a quarter mile on this thing, and it did not veer left or right. I just kept going straight, and I was moving faster. Like I said, these big water PDL kayaks, they were built for the ocean, and if you're going long distances and you need to paddle, okay, let's say for instance my PDL drive broke or the propeller fell off, what have you, and I had to get back to the landing point using paddles, I have complete confidence in using paddles to get to where I need to go. They work really well, they're fast, and they're built for the bigger kayaks, for fishing kayaks. So really happy with the performance of the paddling. Now let's take a look at the gear that I use, and I'll go over some of the things that I observed while on the water there in Long Beach. So this will be a quick gear review along with my observations of the performance of this big water PDL 132. Alright, so let's start with this drive. This PDL drive has a 5-year warranty on it. And when you compare that to Hobie's, the Outback, I had the Outback. Well, this applies to all Hobie kayaks. The Mirage drive has a 3-year warranty, so this one's got it beat. Now, another reason why I really like this PDL drive is it actually floats. As heavy as it is, if my kayak were to tip over or capsize and this drive were to fall out, the thing actually floats. I had a buddy who has a brand new pro angler, and as he got to the shore, the surf, the waves just flipped his kayak over. The Mirage drive came out in about 3 feet of water, and it just sucked it out to the ocean. It was gone. And that was a new one, the 360. So that was horrible. But yeah, it just went down to the bottom. It got sucked away, and he was unable to recover it, unfortunately. But again, this has a 5-year warranty, and it does float. Let's see, the hull of this kayak, okay, this kayak itself has a lifetime warranty. And again, when you compare that to Hobie, it's 3 years. So Old Town really does stand behind their products, and that's a big deal. Now, this seat, I showed it to you in my video. I'm not sure if this part glitched out, but this new seat has no gap in here. The older one had a little hole or a gap here where you could see the supporting bar, and that would rub up against people when you sat down. It's gone now. It's fully padded, a lot more comfortable, and it has lumbar support. It's great. Alright, so aside from that, another reason why I made the move from Hobie to Old Town. Let's talk a little bit about pricing. For me, it's never been a budget issue. I'd always spent more for the Hobies because I felt they were well worth it. But every year, they are increasing their prices. For the, I actually was planning to get the newest Hobie Outback. But for the configuration and colors that I wanted, it would have been well over $3,000. When I looked at the Outback, a Big Water or Predator, this retails for $25.99, $2,600. And with the warranties on the drive, on the hull, the fact that it's built for the ocean, and the fact that I mainly do ocean fishing versus lakes, it was a no-brainer for me. And that's why I pulled the trigger. Those are the key factors for that decision. And trust me, I battled with that decision because I love Hobie. But every year they just keep increasing their pricing, and I couldn't justify making that purchase. So now you know why I made this move. Alright, so let's talk about the gear, my setup. You can see I have a Helix 7 fish finder. I'm going to sit in here for a second so you can see the front end. I need to take this off. I'm going to take this plastic off once I find a good cover for it. Performs great. You can see I have 2 Mighty Mount gear tracks on the very front of my kayak, and that's where I mount my fish finder and a rod holder that I use for trolling. Right here is that cup holder. I didn't screw it in all the way yet, but it goes right into these gear tracks. Let me show you here. See that? It fits right into this gear track. And then you just twist it in. Oh, this thing's awesome compared to this thing. That's I don't consider that a cup holder. It's way too small. But these tracks here are great because you can see they're pre-drilled. I could just put in here. I have another rod holder. I have a track ball that slides right in. I could just twist it in and put my rod holder right there on the starboard side. Here on the port side. This is where I used to have my my fish finder. Now I could use it for an additional rod holder. I didn't put that up there yet, but you can see how that's a start port by Rail Blaza. They work great. And oh, those are my wheels. Now the Malone wheels, you can see they're heavy duty because this kayak is so heavy. Let me move this out of the way. But it goes underneath my yak, and then you strap this around the hull. But I need to tell you right now, it's one thing I don't like about, I don't know if I could blame the yak for it, but it's really tough because this is a heavy kayak. Getting it on top of this takes some effort. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. It's brand new, so I still need to figure it out. But it's a pain during the landing, especially to get my yak up on top of this from the water and then strapping it down. But hopefully I'll figure that out. For now, that's just I guess a minor complaint. Now take a look at this rudder control. Here's another thing I like about these old towns, this big water. You can, okay, so this is to grab the rudder and then move it left and right. It also has a tension knob that you could, so if you're going a distance, let's say you just want to go straight to a point and you don't want to bother with steering, you could lock this down so that your rudder stays straight and you could just go directly to your destination without constantly moving this back and forth to stay on course. Tighten this down and that rudder gets locked in. This is great. I really like that feature. And here is the paddle holder that let me see if I could just grab part of the paddle. I don't feel like assembling the whole thing. Alright, so here's my Pelican paddle. It's not fully assembled, but notice I could just put that in there just like that, and if I need it, boom, I'll just grab it and I can start paddling. But if you don't plan on using it, let's say you've already launched and you're out on the open water, you could just look at that, extra security so that it doesn't fall out while you are out on the ocean. Look at that, is solid. And then you can just simply flip it if it's time to come in, and boom, it's readily available. Really nice clip. Love that paddle clip. Now on the stern side of the kayak, you can see we have two rear facing flush mounted rod holders. I use one for my flag and the other one there for another rod if I ever bring a bunch with me, because I have two rod holders mounted to my cooler here, or my bait tank. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Let's go back here to the rudder. Oh, actually I could use a rudder deployment system. Here is on the starboard side. If you just pull that down like so. Oh, I forgot the point. You can see it brings down the rudder. And take a look at this. Here's another thing I like about Old Town. They use these high tension steel cables for that rudder. This thing is not going to break. On my Hobie Outback, they use like braid or Spectra line, and I've known of many people that have had the braid snap on them, so they lost rudder control. These things, you'll never have that problem. These are great. I mean, the quality they put into this kayak is really exceptional. But yes, another thing I like about Old Town, they didn't skimp on quality, the quality of their boat. And then I had the Yak Attack anchor trolley. I think this one has the lock, yep, built into it. I had this installed for, again, I do occasionally anchor out there while I'm out fishing, especially for sheephead. These are great. And then I actually put in a few extra pet eyes for strapping down my gear. You can see I have a couple set up in here. And I think, oh, here,
I have a zigzag cleat. So again, when it comes to anchoring, these are great because you won't have to tie any more knots to lock down your anchor. But that is pretty much my setup. Oh, let's go back here. On my homemade bait tank, I added another Mighty Mountain gear track right on top of the lid. I could use it for holding paddles and such. I use it for like a quick release device for my net. It's right behind my seat. If I need it, boom, I'll grab it, and while I'm out there on the water, this will hold it in place. So it's really nice. It works for that reason. And you already know about my homemade bait tank. Oh, here's another thing I did. Hobie does know what they're doing, because you'll see here, when I first got this yak, these bungees came basically tied together so that you could just hold down gear. I undid the knot, and I attached 2 Hobie hooks. These are made by Hobie. I don't know if you can see that logo. So I attached them to the end of each of the bungees so that I can just strap down my, you can see I got the hooks on both sides, and I put in these pad eyes so I could just strap down my gear. In this case, the tank, I like going through these handles, and that's what I did with my old Hobie Outback, because now when it's strapped down like this, and if I were to ever flip, this thing is not going anywhere. So I did attach these Hobie hooks to my bungee, and there's another rod holder here. But that is my setup. Oh, on the seat, this looks kind of tacky, but I love this thing. It's from my I used to flow tube, and this pocket here straps right in to the back of the seat, so I could throw in snacks, water, all sorts of things into this zippered pocket. It's great. Looks tacky, but it's very practical and functional. But that is my setup for this big water Old Town Sportsman kayak. So that concludes my on the water review of this new kayak. You can see I'm now approaching the landing point, and using these longer paddles makes a big difference when trying to paddle a yak of this size. But I want to thank you all for watching, and if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks again.